Hi, everybody. This is Howard Schweitzer and Joe Bongiovanni. And
Hey, Howard.
hi, Joe.
Howard, and Mercury is retrograde, so anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. So here we are. We're trying to record this and tell you about a thing. And what we're going to talk about here is we watched this video. This video here about Warren Mosler and libertarian Warren Mosler talking about how to keep the deficit and eliminate taxes, and whether or not that's a good idea. And so I don't know. What do you think, Joe? Is that a good idea?
Hey, that's a great idea if you're Warren Mosler. You know, and a lot of those MMT people think that they want to be Warren Mosler, okay, because they're idiots. That's why, Howard, okay. But you know, yeah, exactly. You know, this, there must be something to this, because you know Warren's got millions and millions and millions. You know,
right? And every dollar,
and you know,
point, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you know, this kind of a Republican, you know, national system that we have here, or the republic that we are. You know, we're a nation of laws, and even including our money statutes, if you will, Howard. Okay, so we have, you know, this legal construct from the Constitution, and we set up the monetary system. And you know, immediately it started to be transformed into a vehicle for private profit. Okay, immediately, and in the first, let's say, 100 years, there was a great kind of struggle going back and forth between the banks, between the rich ones that wanted to mostly control the country, and they became factions, and they became, you know, families, and they became all kinds of rich and oligarchy, just like the Russians, and they gained, and the government lost. So that basically the government didn't have any power to create any money, Howard. Okay, even though the Constitution says that the Congress has the power to issue the money, but it was always, you know, always taken away by laws that were passed or by norms that were adopted or whatever. So we got to the point where we got the Federal Reserve banking system, which is a system of issuing money as debt, and we turned it over to the private banks, and we said we'll let them run the country, really, run the country through the banking and money system. And that puts the government in the position where it has to borrow its you know, its resources, financial and monetary resource, has to borrow them. So one of the things that I think that's worth considering when we've got the libertarian philosophy of Grover Norquist, as it was, you know, don't let anybody raise any taxes, okay? Keep reducing taxes no matter what, and eventually, if you do that, the government will shrink in size according to its income, and we will be able to flush it down the toilet, and we won't have to worry about that old government anymore. And so to me, the idea that modern monetary theory adherents, progressives, former post-Keynesian economists are hanging around with this wild-ass libertarian notion about let's tax less, let's reduce taxes, and let's increase deficits, and therefore let's borrow all that money. I don't really understand, as a progressive, how it has any currency whatsoever. Okay, it's only the non-thinking. The non-thinkers, Howard, they've turned them into non-thinkers. Nobody can think critically. Everybody's supposed to read the papers and understand what it means, and nobody does. Nobody does. The people that used to tell me,
they've been schooled to feign that they understand those nutty papers.
Exactly. How many people is that to me? Well, you never read so-and-so. I read them all. You know, what did they teach you? Well, they taught me this, and I'm going to say, no, that it couldn't have possibly taught you that. It's not true. You know, right. Well, yes, I learned it. Well, yes, you did learn it, but it's still not true. You know, so that's how it is with MMT, as far as I'm concerned. Okay? So but we get this position with this fractional reserve banking system, this private money banking system, okay, money and banking system. And so the government has to every year, you know, finance its deficits, okay, the money that it spends without taxes, by borrowing, okay? And, you know, we're doing it now to the tune of $1 trillion a year, Howard, you know? I remember when my dad got me onto monetary reform, the entire national debt was less than $300 billion, okay? And he told me that if we keep going along these lines, if we don't fix the monetary system, if we don't fix money, he said, in your lifetime, you're going to see the national debt go up by $1 trillion in 1 year. You know, and when he told me that, it was just another one of those things that I was sure my dad was wrong about, you know. But as it turns out, you know, he was absolutely right about it. So we've continued to go along. We've continued to go along with this debt-based money system of the private bankers issuing the money, lending it to everybody, and that includes the government. The government is just a user of the bankers' money system. Right. And if that cannot be manifest any greater detail than taking a look at the consolidated financial statements of the Treasury and its sub offices. Okay, so if you read the balance sheet of the United States government as reported in its annual report, the last one that was issued, I just want to tell you, Howard, how we're doing as a country. You know, 230 years old, how we doing? You know. And how we're doing is like this. Well, doggone if I didn't just lose that again. Okay. Howard, we're at $24 trillion in the hole. Okay? Yeah. We're $24,273,755,000,000 in the hole. In the debt to somebody, Howard. Okay? Yeah. Whoever's holding the debt. So
and it would have been bigger if we hadn't had greenbacks for a little while.
Howard, it would have been a lot bigger if we didn't have greenbacks for a little while because we only issued them for a little while, but they stayed in circulation. They stayed in circulation forever. Right. And by staying in circulation forever, that means that in every year that they were in circulation, that was that much less that they had to borrow in order to keep the money supply up. So I don't know that they saved us $1 trillion, but they definitely saved us many, many billions, and they were only issued in the 450 billion in total quantity. So Howard, you might say to yourself, well, how can that be? How can the government, our government, be negative $24 trillion? And the answer to that is that, well, it's very easy because if you look at the asset side of the balance sheet, okay, there's $21.6 trillion that's due from the general fund, Howard. That's how it balances. Those are the two main amounts, if you will, in the consolidated long-term to date. When I say to date, I mean from 1791 till today. Balance sheet of the federal government, okay? So due from the general fund, 21.6 trillion. Well, ladies and gentlemen, okay, this is the situation. Yeah, well, it's a balance because they call a due from the general fund an intergovernmental asset, Howard. They call it an intergovernmental asset. So they're able to finesse, if you will. They're able to finesse, if you will, the financial position. So how could anybody who's thinking at all in terms of how to deal with the situation that we have now, climate change threatening our very existence, the need to finance the accomplishment of the balancing of climate through technology and through various other means, how could anybody be saying that what we need to do is to borrow more money, borrow more money? There can never be a day when that money can be paid back unless the government has the right to issue it. That's the only way that it can possibly ever be paid back.
Right.
So we're in a situation where we have too much debt and not enough money. That's how the private banking system works. They create more debt than they do money, always. And so, and especially, Howard, when you get into the situation when people don't understand that the debts are permanent. Okay, the debts are permanent. The only way that you could have borrowed, I'm just going to $500 billion 10 years ago, okay, and not having gone broke or worse, is if you roll over the debt. Okay, so you have to roll over the debt. So the debt is permanent. So the interest is permanent, and so the payment of compounding interest is exacerbating the situation every year, forever and ever. Amen. So we're in a perennial negative economic, financial, proposition. And people like Warren Mosler just want us to borrow more money so that we can make it worse, so that we can make it better for him and the class of people that own the Treasury's debts. So to me, the idea that this is some kind of a progressive, type of a monetary economic undertaking or theory is preposterous, and it doesn't stand the test of a logical examination. So that's what's the main thing I want to put as background. Okay, if we don't change something, we're going to continue to do it like this. And the 24 trillion, which was only 20 trillion 5 years ago, and was only like 15 trillion like 10 years ago. Okay, so these trillions that my dad was talking about are coming along pretty regularly now.
Regularly.
And
because I'm looking
and
at
we still
this chart here has 18 trillion in 2010. Right, so in 8 years we went up
18 trillion in
6 trillion more. So not quite a trillion a year, but almost.
Right. And of course, a trillion of this year's increase, current year's increase, it has to do with Trump's ridiculous tax cut for the rich. Okay, like as if the people that are making all the interest on all of that debt, Howard, are not rich enough. That Donald Trump and the Republicans want to make them richer, and unfortunately, a lot of Democrats go along with that, because those create the donor class that keep the two parties going. Yeah. And we need to be able to get very, very, very well beyond that. So we have this impossible situation.
Yeah, that's been quite a while. Is that they both serve the same master.
Exactly. So that I'm trying to put that into the perspective of this is the hole that we're in. Okay, this is the hole that we have to get out of. And Warren Mosler, being the true libertarian that he is not a progressive at all. Okay, not a progressive at all. Okay, his financialism is to exacerbate that situation, to make it worse. Actually,
we're in the hole. Keep digging.
Keep digging faster.
Yeah, faster.
Keep digging faster. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of mention that that his solution, which is bigger deficits and less taxes, is Grover Norquist's solution. And it's not something that should be touched by any progressive, and especially if somebody wants to call themselves real progressives, like Steve Grumbine, who is the poor guy who's he's out there running around saying how great it is. By the way, this is an aside but true. He's running around saying how great it is. AOC says MMT has to be on the table. Different people out there are talking about it, and I say, I agree. That is to say, I agree that MMT has to be on the table. We want it on the table so we can open it up and look at it, and it doesn't become a series of YouTube channels that are controlled, tightly controlled, as far as the message goes, by the MMTers, who don't let anybody in there to challenge or to investigate and examine how it really works. Like, for instance, well, do taxes and bonds fund government spending, or do they not fund government spending, Howard? Which one is it?
Well, according to the Treasury, they fund. They fund government.
Yeah.
Taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and bonds. Security.
Oh, yeah, again, why don't modern monetary theory people read the Treasury's report?
Yeah.
Okay, which says where every
to people. And
I'm
why
sorry?
is it so confusing to so many people? You know, you
Right.
talk about this, it seems like that should be clear, you know, and what you're saying and pointing out, but people's eyes just glaze over, it seems like, too often. A lot of the Greens anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, Greens, Howard, especially by my experience, because I've been a progressive all my life. I used to have a Bernie '88 sticker back there. I don't know what happened to it, but anyway, progressives were like me when my dad tried to tell me the monetary system is the most important thing.
Right.
I was sure peace was the most important thing. I was sure, a sustainable environment was the most important thing. I was sure that achieving equality, of incomes and wealth were the most important things. But my dad kept saying, no, but it's the money system that's underneath all of that stuff. If you don't get the money system right, you can't get that stuff right. So I argued with him, for almost 10 years, before he finally got me to realize that he was right.
Yeah.
And in being right, it takes all of this rhetoric and narrative that we're involved with today, and makes it pertinent to recognize that there is a fork in the road coming up. There's a fork in the road ahead, and it's some people say, well, that's where MMT is going to come in. No, MMT does not stand the light of day. It does not stand the slightest bit of scrutiny. It's designed to, it's like you said, to confuse. And anytime you ask an MMT a second question, get ready and hang on, because you're in for a pretty wild sleigh ride of logic and proportion,
Right.
being gone from their head. But anyway, so Warren Mosler. Now, there we're going to put up that link to that video. And by the way, Howard, as I pointed out, this is a 4-part series, okay? And I commend Warren. I commend Warren for not flinching from letting his freak flag fly. I'm glad that he's doing that. But for the progressives out there who think that there's some kind of a magic bullet, in getting to these monetary system understandings from Warren Mosler, it's not going to be very long before they realize that there's nothing there. And at that point, they have to turn to, why isn't there something there? That's it. Why don't we have the government issuing the money?
Right.
Why aren't we able to turn that $22 trillion negative into a $24 trillion negative into a $24 trillion positive? Why can't we do that? And the answer is in the monetary system, the laws of the monetary system, setting up the monetary system. And that's what we're trying to change and to take back. And so I just wanted to again, that to me is the framework and the background for having a discussion about how libertarianism is going to solve the progressive economic agenda, the one that Hyman Minsky says capitalism is failing to achieve.
Right. So I was just pointing out the URL up here if folks wanted to go check this video out and listen to that sort of stuff. And I'm wondering if we...
and the loan officer says, okay, well, rates are higher, so maybe you don't qualify so much. You say, yeah, but my income is up.
Yeah. It's funny stuff.
Yeah.
Funny stuff.
And that is a 4-part series. You know, we only took a look at this third part, and I looked at the second part and the fourth part. But people should understand where Warren Mosler is coming from. And it's to create net financial assets in the economy. That's the whole purpose of having modern monetary theory, to create net financial assets. Stephanie Kelton says so. Randy Ray says so. Scott Fulweiler says so. You know, all the leading spokespeople say that what we need to do is create more net financial assets.
Right.
Why? What is it about all the needs that we have in the economy that are not met by we don't have enough net financial assets to do? What we have is too many net financial assets.
Here's the thing I was wondering, when they say net financial assets, they're really talking about debt, increasing debt.
Yeah.
And so that we can increase interest payments. And who do those interest payments go to? And I'm looking at a chart here, and it appears that they go to the top 10%. Most people are paying interest rather than receiving interest. And so it's only the top 10% really that receives any interest. That's one chart from, I think that's from back a ways in the 90s, early 90s, and here's one from 2000. And it shows, you know, in that top 20%, they're paying as much as they're receiving. So,
do you have the other chart, Howard?
Yeah, I got the other chart here, and it shows that the top 20, you know, is getting a little bit, but I don't think that's true anymore. I think.
Well, you had another chart I thought that you put up there that was from a later period.
Yeah, this is from 2000. And can you see this one?
I can see this one, but I thought you flashed a second one.
Is this the red and gold one?
No, this is the black and white one.
Ah, okay. So I gotta stop that share and start another share to change pictures. I was hoping I could just go from one to the other, but here, this one, where
that's the one.
Yeah. And so you can see how the red is people paying interest, and the gold is receiving interest.
Very good, very good chart. Oh, that's still back to 2000.
Yeah, still back.
I guarantee that would be worse today.
Much worse.
That would be much worse.
Yeah, because we just had a huge jump in 2008, a huge transfer of wealth.
Yeah. And look at how much. Did you say something before about what the national debt was in 2000, Howard? You said 2010.
National debt. Yeah, I've got something here. Looking at the debt, in 2010, it's looking at it as 18 trillion. But you notice how it took off when the Bretton Woods thing was ended, and it seems like debt just really skyrocketed from there.
Well, let's see. I don't have anything that has that number, but it seems like in 2000.
Again, I have to stop share and reshare, apparently.
Yeah. Well, the point is that the exponential growth in the debt that's been happening. Okay.
There's your exponential curve.
Debt. Now, what is this now? Is this public debt?
Public debt.
Yeah, this is public debt. Yeah. Okay. So if we actually go back to 2000 over here, Howard, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's less than 10.
Yeah.
It's less than 10.
So
that's almost $1 trillion a year, Howard.
Yeah.
That's almost
$1
trillion a year. So you know, it's ridiculous, and all Warren Mosler wants us to do in the name of the people of the United States of America is to accentuate this curve of public debt and keep the wealth transfer going from the bottom to the top. That's what this is all about, Howard. How can the progressives how can the progressives even think about having a conversation around this monetary financial nexus? It's impossible. It's impossible for them to say, well, this is what we should be doing. It's the opposite of what we should be doing. And all of those guys.
The only reason for that, I think, is the fact that our educational system doesn't educate.
Well, on the subject of money,
there's no
sure.
critical thought out there to look at that and think about it.
Right, exactly. So anyway, like I said, to me, the whole purpose here is to get the progressives thinking and understanding what the modern monetary theory philosophy is really all about. And it's not about advancing the needs of the people. They might say, well, if we had a full employment, program, if we had a full employment program, well, a full employment program, my dad was an advocate for full employment programs. My dad was an advocate for employee stock ownership programs and other types of employee sharing advantages.
Sure.
Profit sharing advantages. So in other words, these are old ideas.
Yeah, nothing new
these
there.
are not monetary theory ideas. They just sort of grabbed onto them. But the question is, what about the money? How do they deal with the monetary system? How do they deal with the changes to the money? And there we want to be out front talking about the Kucinich bill. We want to be out front talking about public money. And as soon as the curtain comes down around modern monetary theory for being what it is, a hype, a zero, and a problem. There's no question that the public money, the equity money, the real people's money option is going to move forward quickly. So we're out here to let them know that we're watching and we know, and MMT is full of it.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a good way to close our little talk here about that video.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, Howard.
All right.
I hope it's all working.